Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Azam Khan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Xi Jinping and former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger hold talks in Beijing. Locally, sources say police have questioned family members of two national security suspects. And protesters stormed the Swedish embassy in Baghdad. President Xi Jinping has thanked former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger for contributing to the normalization of ties between their countries. Kissinger, in turn, says relations between China and the United States are crucial for world peace. Chloe Fang reports.
It was the first known meeting between President Xi Jinping and former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger in Beijing in over 3 years. The president noted that 100-year-old Kissinger traveled to China over 100 times. It was at the Diaoyutai State Guest House in July, 52 years ago, that the American met then Premier Zhou Enlai, paving the way for President Richard Nixon to visit China and normalize Sino-U.S. relations. She described those events as a turning point that changed the world. Chinese people value friendship, and we will never forget our old friend and your historic contribution to promoting the development of China-U.S. relations, she told Kissinger.
The relations between our two countries would be central to the peace in the world and to the progress of our society.
U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said Kissinger was not representing the U.S. government. The South China Morning Post, quoting sources, said the elder statesman hopes to get a better understanding of the thinking among China's leaders and will convey his impressions with Washington on his return home. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen were sent on fence-mending missions recently, and Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo may be next. Blinken met Xi, but other U.S. visitors did not. There is speculation that Kissinger is acting as a back channel to reopen substantive dialogue on sensitive areas such as defense between China and the U.S. after relations plunged when former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan last August. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
In Hong Kong, police have questioned the relatives of two fugitive national security suspects, according to sources. The elder brother of former lawmaker Dennis Kwok was seen leaving Western Police Station this afternoon. Their parents, as well as the wife of Dennis Kwok's brother, were also questioned by National Security Police this morning and released. No arrests were made. Sources added that police raided the home of the brother of trade unionist Meng Siu Tat on Tuesday. The man, his wife, and son were taken to a police station for questioning and released on the same day. They were not arrested. Police reportedly wanted to know if they had contacted Meng or given him financial support. Foreign domestic helpers will be among those who will be able to use the echannel service when arriving in Hong Kong or leaving starting tomorrow. Imported workers and non-local students aged 11 or above are also eligible if they are Hong Kong residents and register with the Immigration Department. It used to take 15 seconds to pass through immigration counters, but it will only take 7 seconds using the echannel service.
This new arrangement will certainly allow our department to flexibly deploy our manpower, because before this new arrangement, when these 3 categories of Hong Kong residents need to travel across the border, they need to use our traditional counters. Now they can use our e-channels to perform their self-service immigration clearance. So in theory, we can have more counters to cater for other travelers who cannot use our e-channel services.
A 27-year-old photographer has been sentenced to 3 months in jail for insulting the national anthem. Eastern Magistrate Minnie Watt said Cheng Wing-chun showed no sign of remorse as he became the first person convicted of the offense during a trial. Watt said a deterrent sentence is needed to prevent insults against the anthem. Cheng was accused of modifying a video of fencer Edgar Chung's medal ceremony in the Tokyo Olympics 2 years ago. The defendant replaced the anthem March of the Volunteers with a protest song. There have been calls to speed up checks on old buildings following another case of falling concrete. Nearly 5,000 buildings have failed to comply with mandatory inspection orders. Chloe Wong reports.
Scaffolding was put around a building in Shaiwan Hall for repair work after pieces of concrete fell to the ground. A passerby was injured in the incident yesterday evening. The 58-year-old building had undergone a complete check last year, but the building's department has called for a renovation. This man said flat owners paid $60,000 each for the inspection last year. During the check, some problems were found with the concrete, but they were deemed to be not urgent. The building owner's corporation hasn't decided on how to pay for further remedial work. This prompted lawmaker Edward Leung to urge the Fire Services Department to approve renovation funds for the building as soon as possible. Yesterday's incident was the 4th case of falling concrete this month. Earlier, there were 3 cases in Mongkok, including 2 from the same building. About 4,800 old buildings across Hong Kong have failed to fulfill mandatory inspection orders and may face prosecution. Chloe Wong, HKIBC.
Overseas, hundreds of protesters in the Iraqi capital Baghdad have stormed the Swedish embassy. The assault came amid indications of another Quran burning in the Swedish capital, Stockholm.
It's not the first time that protesters in the Muslim world felt the pain and anger by the burning of a copy of the Quran in Sweden. This morning, hundreds of protesters stormed the Swedish embassy in the Iraqi capital Baghdad, following reports that Sweden had given permission for a protest outside Iraq's diplomatic mission in Stockholm. A Swedish news agency said 2 protesters planned to burn a copy of the Quran during the demonstration. No Swedish diplomat was injured in today's attack, which ended within hours when Iraqi police chased the demonstrators from the compound. The Iraqi government condemned the incident. Just last month, an Iraqi Christian burned a Quran outside a mosque in Stockholm. That triggered large protests in numerous Muslim countries, including Syria and Pakistan. In January, a burning of a Quran by a Danish man in Sweden caused large protests in Turkey.
A gunman in the New Zealand city of Auckland has killed 2 people and wounded 6 others before he was shot dead by police. The attack took place hours before the first match of the Women's World Cup between Norway and the host New Zealand. Sachin Katvi has the story.
Police in New Zealand's biggest city swung into action as soon as they were alerted that a gunman was on the rampage at a construction site. The attacker, identified as 24-year-old Matu Tangi Matua Reid, who worked at the site in Auckland, was armed with a pump-action shotgun. He killed 2 workers and injured 6 other people, including an officer, before he was fatally shot by police. Reid was known to the authorities and had mental health issues, but a motive for the attack has yet to be determined. The shooting happened around breakfast time and prompted police to seal off Auckland's business district.
Actually, yeah, I'm quite nervous. A lot of people was like here and there was something shooting going on, and yeah, everybody's panic here.
There are police everywhere. Didn't really know what was going on, and then when we got inside, we were told it was a lockdown, so we had to stay inside.
The attack happened just hours before New Zealand took on Norway in the opening match of the Women's World Cup. New Zealand are co-hosting the football showpiece with Australia. Sachin Katwi, HKIBC.
China has proposed a comprehensive plan to give private businesses a shot in the arm. In a rare opinion piece, Tencent chairman Pony Ma praised Beijing's new guidelines. Chloe Fong reports.
In an extraordinary move, Pony Ma, the low-profile co-founder and chairman of tech giant Tencent, published an article in state media praising new government support policies for the ailing private sector. Ma said Tencent was excited and deeply encouraged, describing the fresh guidelines as very targeted to tackle the challenges and opportunities faced by the private businesses. Last night, the State Council issued a 31-point action plan for the transition to high-quality growth. They include removing market entry barriers for private firms, efforts to prevent debt defaults for small enterprises, a so-called traffic light system to regulate private capital funding, and encouraging digital transformation for private companies. The document is one of Beijing's most comprehensive plans since President Xi Jinping started his third term. China has over 47 million registered private companies, but most small businesses suffered during COVID, while some big names stumbled following national crackdowns on sectors such as technology and tutoring. The measures were announced after China's second quarter growth came in at a weaker than expected 6.3% year-on-year. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Inflation in Hong Kong eased slightly last month. The consumer price index rose 1.9% from a year ago, from 2% in May. While overall inflation remains moderate, energy, clothing, and catering prices soared significantly. But the authorities expect inflation to remain moderate in the short term as overseas inflationary pressure also eased. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 24 points. Top 10 active stocks, Tracker Fund was down 4 cents, Alibaba down 85 cents. BYD Company was up $1.60, Meituan down $1. Forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 8.75, Canadian dollar at 5.94. And over in the UK markets, the London FTSE is currently up 49 points. On to the weather now. Very hot in the afternoon with a few showers. Temperatures will range between 28 and 33 degrees. Expect the mercury to stay high through the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. Our late news will again be at 10:30 p.m. I'm Azam Khan. Good night.